This session provides an overview to support the Keystone Stars transition from the revised or second editions of the Environment Rating Scales, ITERS-R, ECERS-R, and FCCERS-R, to the third editions, ITERS-3, ECERS-3, and FCCERS-3. Both the second and third editions of the Environment Rating Scales, or ERS, have been an option for the internal assessment process in Keystone Stars for several years. On July 1st, 2024, the ITERS-3, ECERS-3, and FCCERS-3 become the editions approved for Keystone Stars designation. For out-of-school time programs, the updated version of the School-Age Environment Rating Scale, the ICERS-3, will continue to be an approved program observation instrument option in STARS. Let's start with a quick review of some ERS basics that apply to both the second editions and the third editions. An ERS assessment considers the indoor and outdoor spaces used by the group, and the observation occurs while the children are present and active in their typical routines and opportunities. All of the environment rating scales are organized in the same way, and the ICERS-3 use the same rating system as earlier editions, a 7-point Likert scale, and the same instructions for rating items as the revised editions. When rating an ERS item, you'll start with the indicators in the ones column and decide if you have observed the practice or provision during the 3-hour observation period before you move on to the indicators in the 3s, 5s, and 7s columns. Don't be discouraged if you don't observe something expected. That's good information that will inform your planning. Completing an observation or assessment with a program observation instrument helps us know what might be a priority for quality improvement work. Another ERS basic is the perspective of the instrument. An ERS observation takes a wide-angle lens perspective and considers the many elements and decisions that go into creating the children's experience. The environment rating scales use a comprehensive approach to considering how the environment, relationships, and learning interactions during play and routines support physical, social-emotional, and cognitive development while enhancing children's health and safety. The terms you see on the screen may be familiar if you have experience using the second edition or revised edition of the environment rating scales. In some cases, the term carries the same meaning and impact into the third edition. In the next few slides, we'll take a look at some of the terms you may know that have an updated use in the third edition. Before we move on, just a reminder that you can learn more about the terms shown here and others by reviewing the Administration of the Scales section of your ERS book, referring to any notes for clarification for specific items and indicators of the scale, and by participating in professional development. Weather permitting is a term that is probably familiar to users of the ERS second editions. Those editions do not include guidance for the term, which refers to weather that is appropriate for outdoor play. To clarify the expectation of weather permitting, an OCDEL-approved definition was created and shared via Pennsylvania position statements for the ERS. The ITERS-3, ECERS-3, and FCCERS-3 include a definition of weather permitting, so a PA position statement is no longer necessary. Interest center may be another term you know from experience with previous editions of the environment rating scales. It is used in the third editions but has updated expectations around the intentional design of the spaces children use for play activities. Let's take a closer look at the concept of interest centers and the enhanced perspective the ERS 3rd edition instruments take on this aspect of room arrangement. To promote children's development, the overall classroom environment is planned so that toys and materials can be easily seen and independently reached by mobile children. For non-mobile children, the environment is planned so that teachers can easily bring toys close to the youngest children, and there is ample space for all members of the group, children and adults, to move around and play. The ERS 3rd editions define two different ways of arranging the environment: play areas and interest centers. A play area is a space where play materials are provided for children to use. It's a place where children can play. For example, puzzles, blocks, and books are stored in the same area. That is a play area. An interest center is also an area for play, but it is an area clearly defined and designed to support a particular type of play. Materials and toys in an interest center are organized by type and stored so that they are accessible to the children. An appropriate amount of space is provided for the type of play being encouraged by the materials and the number of children allowed to play in the center. For example, age-appropriate unit blocks and block play accessories are stored on a well-labeled child-sized shelf in a space that is large enough for children to build and for teachers to join the children in that space. Another term you may frequently hear in connection to program quality assessment is developmentally appropriate practice, or DAP or DAP. When we talk about DAP and the environment rating scales, we're thinking about practices to support great experiences that help young children learn and grow. And we're using the NACE definition that you see here. Creating environments and experiences in support of each child's full potential is the why behind program quality assessment. Using the information you collect with an instrument like the ERS for planning is one part of the how of continuous quality improvement. A variety of resources is available to support you in learning more about the ERS terms spotlighted here and on other 3rd edition and ITERS-3 details. Your quality coach can also support you in identifying opportunities that enhance your use of the environment rating scales for improvement and professional growth. Foundations of ERS and foundations of the FCCERS-3 are prerequisites for the scale-specific ERS sessions and go into much greater detail about the basics, including giving you practice with the scoring rules, as well as the guidelines for completing an ERS observation, organizing your observation notes, and thinking about how to use the feedback for planning. The Pennsylvania Keys Program Quality Assessment Team is pleased to offer the Let's Talk Quality blog as a resource for updates, insights, and deeper dives into early care and education topics and trends. Although not specifically ERS focused, the blog includes articles about the environment rating scales as well as developmentally appropriate practice and child development. The Program Quality Assessment, or PQA, pages of the Pennsylvania Key website are a great source of information about using the environment rating scales to support overall continuous quality improvement and professional development activities, as well as for Keystone Stars designation activities. The Environment Rating Scale Institute, or ERSI, is the ERS-authored certified training organization for the environment rating scales. Here you can find the most recent notes for clarification and a number of the supplemental materials you'll need to support your use of the ERS. On the ERSI website, you can also find scale-specific comparisons of the revised editions and the third editions. We'll revisit this slide at the end of this session and review how to access this downloadable list of resources. Now that we've reviewed some of the ERS basics, let's look more closely at how the ERS third editions build on a strong foundation of responsive and individualized interactions and developmentally appropriate experiences. The introductory remarks found on the first few pages of any of the ERS books describes the author's approach to developing the third editions of the scales. They maintain the core ERS perspective that learning happens throughout the day during play and routines, while also integrating innovation and new understanding about early care and education. The authors used current research to develop instruments that can help early educators and program administrators regularly check in on what children experience and then use the information gathered for professional growth and learning. The ERS third editions build on the quality practices considered in the revised editions in three key ways. The ITERS-3, ECERS-3, and FCCERS-3 emphasize the role of the teacher in creating an environment conducive to developmental gains for children, are designed to predict child outcomes more accurately and with greater precision, and provide a stronger method of distinguishing between good and truly excellent programs. The internal assessment process for CQI planning gives programs and their partners opportunities to deeply investigate what goes into creating and maintaining an optimal experience for the children. Completing an internal assessment isn't about checking off a box or filling out a score sheet. Instead, we are focusing on honestly understanding what children are experiencing and how and why those experiences and relationships help children develop and learn holistically. This growth-centered approach is more effectively and accurately complemented by the third editions. So the decision was made to move fully away from the revised editions. An observation with a third edition of the environment rating scales can help you find those moments of effectiveness where you are already making decisions that support great things for the children in your program. It can also help you make new decisions to further enhance your practice. In this section, we'll be taking a closer look at how the ERS third editions bring a new perspective to observing the interrelated nature of children's development. When we start to look for the key differences between the revised editions of the environment rating scales and the third editions, some big ideas stand out. The second or revised editions of the environment rating scales collected information from both the observation and post-observation interview. The third editions do not include a post-observation interview. The ITERS-3, ECERS-3, and FCCERS-3 utilize a 3-hour observation and a limited number of data collection questions. There is not a staff interview about unobserved practices and program policies. An observation using the ITERS-3, ECERS-3, or FCCERS-3 will typically begin between 8:30 and 9 o'clock in the morning, but cannot begin until most of the enrolled children are present and the group being observed is in their regular classroom or their regularly used outdoor space. The ICERS-3 does utilize the combination of an observation and a staff interview. A variety of age-appropriate toys and materials in a well-designed, safe, and child-friendly environment is still expected in the third editions, but the focus has shifted from confirming that the classroom has those elements to observing how these elements are used to support children's growth and learning in the context of nurturing relationships. In the third edition of the Environment Rating Scales, you will see this approach to relationships and interaction-based learning referred to as responsive caregiving and individualized teaching. Because the third editions only consider what is observed, the assessor is focused on what happens throughout the 3-hour observation period and does not use reported information to calculate things like substantial portion of the day or much of the day. The big ideas of responsive caregiving and individualized teaching also allow for the experiences of all children, including children with special needs, to be considered throughout an observation with the ITERS-3, ECERS-3, or FCCERS-3. Let's look more closely at the different approach the third editions take to assessing toys and play materials. The third editions of the Environment Rating Scales put less emphasis on confirming specific quantities and types of materials in the classroom. Although ample age-appropriate toys and play materials are still expected, the emphasis is on the observed experience of the children rather than the specific number of toys and play materials. When observing with the ITERS-3, ECERS-3, or FCCERS-3, we can ask ourselves questions such as, are there enough toys? The children have interesting choices and aren't competing for items? Do the toys and play materials support a variety of skills and allow children to explore a variety of interests? Having enough doesn't mean that children will never have to wait for a popular choice, but they should feel confident that they'll have a turn and will be able to do something fun and interesting when they have to wait. Much like the difference in how the revised edition and the third edition look at toys and materials, the third edition perspective on space and furnishings also shifts from confirming the presence of provisions to observing how the space and furnishings work to enhance the experience of the children. Furniture used by the children is expected to be child-sized in both the revised and third editions, but the third edition also expects some specialized furnishings, such as steps that toddlers and preschoolers can use to reach a sink, an easel for painting, or a book display that allows children to see the covers of books. The ITERS-R, ECERS-R, and FCCERS-R each include items and indicators related to interactions. However, the third editions of those instruments look more deeply and more broadly at the role of responsive relationships and warm, supportive interactions that connect to what is meaningful to the individual child. When using the third edition, the observer is listening and watching for the tone of the interactions. Are they positive or negative or just neutral information sharing? The observer is also watching and listening for the quality of the interactions. Are open-ended questions being used? Is descriptive language being used? Is the teacher using the interaction to connect the experience to a concept or developmental opportunity? Before moving into the final overview of big ideas, I want to highlight the new perspective you'll be using when observing experiences with language, print, math, and number. Programs who have already been exploring the ERS third editions, have shared that they've been doing a lot of reflecting and planning around language, literacy, math, and number experiences following their observations. As hinted at in the previous slide, language is a key ingredient in the many interactions that are at the heart of responsive caregiving and individualized teaching. Because language and literacy can bring so much to children's experiences, we're going to spend a little more time on the key differences in how the third editions consider these elements of the program. Especially for the youngest groups of children, language includes your words and your nonverbal cues like body language and facial expressions, as well as the nonverbal cues of the infant or toddler. The ITERS-3, ECERS-3, and FCCERS-3 recognize the incredible power of language and literacy for learning and relationship building by incorporating verbal and nonverbal communication throughout the scales and in their own subscale. Just as they take a more robust approach to language and literacy, the ITERS-3, ECERS-3, and FCCERS-3 have an enhanced focus on children's experiences with math concepts and numbers. Those experiences include the math talk that can happen throughout the day during play activities, routines, and transitions, as well as math activities and the use of age-appropriate math and number toys and materials. The core focus of the third editions on the role of the teacher in creating an environment conducive to developmental gains for children is evident in how the ITERS-3, ECERS-3, and FCCERS-3 consider language and print. Early care and education professionals have long known the important role language plays in children's development, but our understanding continues to be enhanced, and those innovations and expanded insight are reflected in the third editions. As early educators were thinking in new ways about verbal and nonverbal forms of language, and considering the many opportunities to demonstrate to children how print can capture ideas and share information. The revised editions of the ERS considered the important role of language in books, and the third editions build on that to include additional items that look at how adults and children use verbal and nonverbal communication, how teachers share books with children, and how children use books on their own, and how teachers and children interact with print in the environment. The third editions also reflect that enhanced understanding through their emphasis on experiences with language and print throughout the 3-hour observation period. Those experiences can happen during play, routines, or transitions, can be verbal or nonverbal, and should always invite children to be part of the back and forth rhythm. Whether you loved or dreaded math class, math concepts and numbers are a part of our lives in ways we may not even realize. Building these skills helps children organize and understand the world around them. The ITERS-3, ECERS-3, and FCCERS-3 place math and number experiences in the context of the teacher and child interactions and children's play activities and routines. And yes, I did say the ITERS-3 considers math and number experiences for infants, toddlers, and 2-year-olds. In fact, you were probably already doing math and number with them. Singing Hickory Dickory Dock and holding up one finger when the clock strikes 1 is an experience with math. Counting the friends in line to head out to the playground is a math experience for preschoolers, but that same exposure to numbers can happen in an age-appropriate way as you count a baby's toes during a diaper change. In a preschool classroom, math talk might include having the children help you figure out how many places will be needed at the snack table, or helping you set the countdown to cleanup timer. Experiences that connect written numbers with concrete examples help children build the incredibly complex concept of quantity. Giving children a strong start in math through playful activities and meaningful math talk is a great way to give them the familiarity and the confidence they will need to approach math as a helpful tool. As this session draws to an end, I invite you to reflect on your goals for continuous quality improvement and think about what you hope to learn about both your overall program and about the experiences of different age groups. If the wide-angle lens of the environment rating scales feels like a good fit, your quality coach can support you in identifying additional professional development on the ITERS-3, ECERS-3, or the SACRS-U. If you select the ERS for your internal assessment process, or IAP, for STARS designation, your quality coach can also help you connect with a Pennsylvania Key Assessor who can join a conversation about using the information collected through an ERS observation. The Pennsylvania Key Assessor can also support your process through a side-by-side observation with your internal observer, by completing an ERS assessment to include with your internal assessments for CQI planning, or through a combination of approaches. Learning about your program from a fresh perspective is an exciting opportunity, but it does take work to take that look in a meaningful way. Even if you've already started exploring the third editions, we hope that you'll build on that start through reflection, information sharing, and practice. This session is being presented as a recorded webinar so that you and your team will have easy access to the information. Self-paced, scale-specific courses are available to deepen your learning. Your course registration for a scale-specific session includes a copy of the ITERS-3, ECERS-3, or FCCERS-3. A self-paced course is also available for the SACRS-U, and registration includes a copy of the SACRS-U. When you are ready to complete internal assessments in your classroom, talk with your quality coach about your plan. If you are completing assessments for STARS designation, keep in mind the option of having a Pennsylvania Key Assessor partner with your internal observer. Whether you use the ERS third editions for internal assessment or partner with a Pennsylvania Key Assessor, here's a quick review of key details. The ITERS-3, ECERS-3, and FCCERS-3 are a 3-hour observation while children are present. To complete a meaningful observation, the internal or external observer will need to collect some data about the enrolled children, but there is not a post-observation interview about unobserved practices. The assessor will ask some orienting questions about enrollment and children's ages and will collect teacher professional background information. Just a reminder that the SACRS-U has a different time frame based on the program schedule and will include an interview about observed practices, along with questions about enrollment and teacher professional background information. For an ITERS-3, ECERS-3, or FCCERS-3 observation, at least one meal or snack service must be observed. If a meal or snack is not served during the 3-hour observation, the assessor will stay to observe a meal or snack, but will only be considering that one item. Although a meal or snack must be observed, it is not required for the assessor to observe nap unless children nap during the 3-hour period. If you are familiar with having an ITERS-R, ECERS-R, or FCCERS-R observation, you might notice the assessor doesn't spend a lot of time reviewing toys and materials during an observation with the 3rd edition instrument. The assessor might even opt to look at toys and materials after completing the 3-hour observation period so that they can devote their full focus to interactions, language, and activities. Focusing on the relationships and hands-on experiences can mean taking a lot of notes during the observation. Make note-taking a priority over trying to assign a rating to all of the individual indicators. The lunchtime conversation about sweet, sour, tart, and salty foods could also apply to the nature science item, but you might miss the details if your focus is pulled to assigning a rating. Finally, as promised, we'll wrap up with revisiting some of the resources and supports available to you. Your quality coach and the Pennsylvania Key Program Quality Assessment Team are looking forward to being your partners as you put your plan into action. A downloadable version of this resource list is available on the Pennsylvania Key website where you found this recorded overview. You can also request it by emailing the Program Quality Assessment Team at pqa@pennsylvaniakeys.org. Finally, be sure to connect with your quality coach about resources and support that can enhance your use of the environment rating scales for continuous quality improvement, planning, and professional development.